Sometimes you won't have all the data that's going to tell you you're going to be successful. And sometimes there's a really good reason to be scared. Most startups, when they achieve some form of success, go to where the money is. You notice Snode goes to where the problems are.
Ladies and gentlemen, cyber heroes and cyber fans, welcome to another episode. As you know, my name is mrfingerz, the one and only that cybersecurity guy. And today I have to say I'm super honored to have a phenomenal guest. Guess what? I've been following this guy for the past 4 years. Yeah, I've been following him for 4 years. And the craziest thing is that I considered him a mentor. You see, there's a saying which says, you can consider people to be your mentor either by books, videos, and even by reading the articles. And I've been following his journey for a very long time. And I truly believe you attract what you want. And I ended up attracting him to actually being here on this very podcast today. Ladies and gentlemen, cyber heroes and cyber fans, this phenomenal individual is an entrepreneur. This person is a person who thinks outside the box. This person has built over 80 points of presence around the world. His company has created so many jobs and he's changed so many lives, not only by defending companies, but also by inspiring people like you and I to make a difference in the world of cybersecurity. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please give it up for my wonderful and amazing guest, Nithen. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you for the great introduction.
I had to. I mean, it's well deserving for you. I mean, your journey has been so inspiring. Starting off, I think if I'm correct, you started off as a pen tester and now you're a founder of your own company, which is Snode Technologies. Now, with that being said, what really inspired you to basically jump out of that box and be like, you know what? I want to start my own business, because you've worked in different roles before cybersecurity. But let's start it off when you were starting out. You started off as a pen tester, and from there you jumped onto other roles, But what really inspired you to think outside the box and be like, you know what, I'm thinking of becoming an entrepreneur and starting my own world? What inspired that?
So I did start as a penetration tester. I loved it. It's hard to believe you get paid to break into things as a job, but that is how I started. So I was pretty lucky. I was also lucky in the fact that I got to work for a South African company that had like a big global brand. So, and it was built locally at home. And it's still a huge brand today. And so many of my heroes come from there. And I think the education I had through working there, through working at environments like Investec, which is also homegrown, right? All built in one person's lifetime. Seeing other entrepreneurs achieve such, magnificent feats, right? Investec's it's absolute beautifully place to work, and inspired me to want to become an entrepreneur. And I realized that, I don't want to be, 55, get a watch, the rest of my life in a cubicle. So I left work, a pretty nice, high-paying job, and I went off to start my own company. And in the beginning, it was pretty hard. In the beginning, I can remember our first job was installing the till slip printers in a pizza pot. And I even remember how much we made. We made that entire month. We just had that one job. And keep in mind, we had this intent to build this global cybersecurity, cyber defense firm. But we were installing, printers in a pizza parlor. And we made 3,000 rands for that one job. And my only one employee at that time, his salary was 3,000 rands. And a really interesting story about that is the owner of that pizza parlor is now the CEO of mrfingerz. And that employee became my client and now is in Germany and does renewable energy. So it's strange. We all have these really humble beginnings. And, and they evolve into these amazing stories and the people you meet along the way. So it started there, and it was a slow grind from there upwards, but always just trending in the right direction, right? 3,000 becomes 6,000, 6,000 becomes 12,000. I can remember times we sat in, because my first office was actually in my mother's house. That's where we started, right? And we used to laugh about one day we'll be making millions, and we'll be building millions, because we were building at that time maybe tens of thousands. And it's funny, the things it's like you said, you put that intent out into the universe, and the universe provides, right? And as long as your intent is pure and, you can achieve it. And before we knew it, that's exactly what we were doing. That's exactly what we were building. And, we wanted to do work for the Defense Force, and, then we got the Defense Force, and we wanted to do work for intelligence agencies, and we wanted to protect governments around the world. And yeah, it starts with that intent and a lot of hard work, actually.
It's a beautiful story, and I love that. And I love your company's name. Take us through the name. What inspired the name? Because many people don't know, the name behind, like, what is really inspired the name. Because there's so many names when it comes to having a cybersecurity company. Most people, they'll call it cyber something, cyber this, cyber that. But your name is quite different, though. Snode Technologies. Why? Like, why that? That name is amazing, because it makes me think. The first thing I would tell you, right, when I hear it, it tells me that it's more technology driven first, and also it's more energy driven at the same time. And it doesn't give it away in terms of this is a cybersecurity company until you read up about it. You're like, oh, this is a cybersecurity company. But to actually get you there, what really inspired the name?
So it's a great question. Snode comes from circuit theory, so the energy. It comes from the term synergy node. Synergy node is that point through which everything transacts. Cybersecurity is one of the applications of the technology we've built. But the vision for the technology we built is slightly different. So the concept of Snode comes from like circuit theory and aspects of physics. The aspects of physics are like the observer effect. If I wore a camera with a flash and I went into the jungle and I wanted to photograph gorillas in their natural habitat, it would be absolutely impossible. Because by me being in their environment, they would change their behavior. And if you think about it, that's the same with any adversary who enters, no matter how passive they are, and whether it's surveillance or whatever negative risk enters into an environment, there's a subtle change in status, in the natural behavior of the state of the system. And what we were building was a platform that would recognize that state of change and be able to analyze it and identify some form of root cause. Now, when you take that thinking, you actually realize that's great for cybersecurity, because even if an attacker is passive, comes into the network, there'll be a change in the network state. However, a system like that can also be applied to, like, for example, predictive policing. But we took all the protest social media and we could pick up those subtle changes in state, and we could attribute them to root causes, like, the outbreak of violence and those things. And using trained analytics and a bit of predictive analytics, we could tell when outbreak of violence would occur or was highly likely to occur. And then you can convert that into prescriptive analytics, right? Where you can actually say, if you deploy police at these points, you're actually going to discourage or you're going to suppress the potential or mitigate that risk of the outbreak of violence during this protest. Predictive policing, disease outbreak, just general crime, and in assisting law enforcement with tracking and tracing and those kinds of activities, human trafficking. There's so many applications for a technology of this nature to solve social evils that affect specifically our continent, but also the world, right? Yeah, you think out of the box, and we wanted to make more than just money. I mean, it's great that today our technology is across the world, but we also wanted to make a positive impact on people's lives. And I think so that's why Synergy Node, that system through which everything transacts, so we can understand the subtle changes and we can prevent bad things from happening, especially to those who need it the most.
Nice. Actually, so that's something which I want us to talk a bit more, when it comes to technologies that you guys are currently using, because I know that some of your work, you guys are actually doing great, amazing work. And with real-time data when it comes to processing algorithm and detecting threats before they even happen. But I want us to walk us through how, Snode's technology works and how it's changing the game currently right now in cybersecurity, because I know there's just a few things that you guys launched, but how are you guys currently changing the game right now in cybersecurity?
Yeah, so I think at a really high level, Snode does three things. It's data fusion. We can take data from anywhere, social media, internal systems like, Parcel or Inatus or e-filing, or, so internal data sources and then external data sources, dark web, deep web, all of those things, and we bring it into a single source of truth. Then we give you a single pane of glass to look at it, to look at your single source of truth. We call that data visualization, where the data in its raw form is cognitive overload. You're not going to read every tweet, but you can understand the trends, and you can see the pattern of activities which would otherwise be invisible to the naked eye, just staring at the tweets. And then we use machine-assisted analytics to identify potential risks. So the predictive analytics and the prescriptive analytics I mentioned earlier. And then we use machines, like in the cybersecurity case, to automate a response. We call it active defense. But essentially, once we understand a threat, the definition of the threat is explicit and the response mechanism, it can be automated. Then we automate those responses, either through our systems or through other systems. If we take the example of the police and the predictive policing, imagine if there was a system that went down to those patrol cars and told them, hey, listen, go to these points, and proactively use the prescriptive analytics to deploy our limited resources, which is our police force, at particular junctures, which would ultimately, in a data-driven approach, reduce the potential for violence or the outbreak of violence with student protests. So that's kind of how the system works. The second part of your question was how we're pushing those boundaries today, right? We're big at the moment on digital twin technology. So we run simulations. So we run simulations of what will happen if we do not deploy those forces, and we understand the risk and the impact. And we understand the costs associated with not deploying those forces. And then we simultaneously deploy those forces. We then rerun the simulation and we understand how that environment has changed. And if, for example, the prescriptive analytics, like let's just say, for example, because the police forces are deployed at those locations, some third force moves the protest or smaller protest branches out somewhere else. We use that real-time data to simulate that so that we can then sort of respond and we can pivot and redeploy those forces, or, because the threat landscape is dynamic, right? And also threats evolve, and so you've got to see it as a moving goalpost. If you from a pen testing perspective, if I block you in one environment, you'll go find another environment. That's natural. The ability for your adversary to pivot, change tactics, etc., requires your ability to respond at speed. And in today's world with AI, it needs to be in real time at machine speed, right? So the simulations run hundreds and thousands of simulations at the same time and understand, and then it's almost like a living ecosystem of messages that go down to our patrol cars. Okay, be here. Okay, wait here. And these are the individuals of interest, the people of interest that we may want to identify, and then move here. And these are the people of interest that we may want to identify. Those people whose profiles match those of like the profile for the initiator of violence.
This makes perfect sense. And with everything that you guys are currently doing, and shows that you guys are already in the future right now, and you're moving quickly to adapt things very quickly as well. Because obviously you guys work with global clients as well. So that's one of the reasons why. Because different countries have different attack vectors as well. I think one of my questions coming to that, because I had another question, but I think since we are here on defenses as well, from what you've seen and your experience, and obviously owning a company and having some of your clients in South Africa as well, but do you think we in South Africa have taken cybersecurity seriously, or have companies in South Africa started investing in cybersecurity by taking it seriously, or not?
I think we do take cybersecurity seriously. I think there's a portion of our private sector was very efficient. I would argue they're overinvested in cybersecurity. With AI, automation, etc. I see the budgets of some of these environments, and it's so manually driven. I think digital transformation will solve that for them. But I think there's also got to be that change management, or that rapid adoption of more innovative approaches to cyber. I mean, as an industry, signature-based detection really was the only core detection for like 20 years. So while the attackers were evolving and adapting and innovating, I kind of felt like as defenders, we failed to do so. Now we're becoming a lot better, but it's also the industry itself has matured and evolved. When I started in penetration testing, there weren't that many. Most people didn't know what it was that we did. Today it's well known, quite a well understood space. So I think in terms of South Africa, we're early adopters of technology in many ways, and we also have visibility into our environments where I think, number one, I think there are other countries that get attacked, but maybe it's not made public as much as it is in South Africa. I think all countries get attacked, but their detective capabilities not quite there yet, which is why they call us in to come and assist. And the skills within that local market is not there, so they call us in and we come in and assist, and they're getting hammered, right? So South Africa has skills, but we also have our challenges. So number one, I think we've seen like advanced attacks, even internally, like disinformation campaigns, etc. The things we talk about, like with the US elections. We've seen those things happening in South Africa, like mimetic warfare has been in South Africa for a long time. We used to do work in that space, and I can tell you, even politically, that the innovation on the offensive side has been quite rampant, right? Then, of course, getting things done defensive, I think, sometimes can be a challenge. Firstly, there's this history of the infrastructure. South Africa is it's a big country. We've got lots of land. We've got lots of resources. You look at the infrastructure we have, and you look at some of the technical debt there, beyond cybersecurity. There's a lot that these institutions have to deal with. And cybersecurity is just one of those many things. Like if you just take into example, like Eskom, there's a lot of challenges there. And I just think, cybersecurity is one of those challenges. I think if cybersecurity was the only challenge Eskom had right now, I think, it'd be a lot easier. But, there's a lot of challenges in our local landscape that contribute to why we may not be as effective and as organized as we need to be, and we need to get, especially with hybrid warfare, the emergence of the like conflicts globally. So, China, Taiwan, Russia, Ukraine, East, West. I think our growing reliance on technology cross-border, that needs to be addressed. We need more local products. We need more local defense capability. With all our operating systems coming from one side of the world and all our interconnected devices coming from the other side of the world, when they fight, we're kind of at their mercy. So our entire power grid, our water supply, our even our defense infrastructure is underpinned by people who could be our adversary tomorrow. If any of this conflict spills over. So I think, the need for us to build a stronger cyber defense capability is definitely.
And do you think, since we're on this as well, do you think, as a person who owns a company, and there's a lot of articles as well saying that we right now in 2024 and 2025 to 2020, I think until 2028, we need more cybersecurity people which need to be skilled, or people who already have the skill, because there's a huge skill gap at this current moment. What's your thoughts on that? And how do you think people should be skilled?
So I'm going to tell you something that people don't say a lot, right?
Please do.
You're not going to fill the skills gap. The problem is here. The problem is now. You're not going to fill the skills gap. It's the way we're using those skills. Do we need to skill our people? 100%. But if you think the solution is filling the skills gap, I disagree. I think it's the way you use those skills. So, do we need to skill our people? Yes. Where we need to skill our people and how we solve the problem is leveraging innovation and technology better. So, leveraging AI, leveraging emerging technology, leveraging automation, leveraging orchestration, and being smarter about how we use our people, processes, and technology. Do we have skilled people and do we have talented people? Yes, but if you're going to think you're going to put them in a very manual sort of traditional, like non-intelligence driven sort of way to protect the entire South Africa and turn our cybersecurity posture around, I just don't think that's feasible. And I don't think I think if you take those people and you use that intellectual capital to build more intelligent defense systems, to build a greater degree of automation, to build better security posture through, leveraging AI, through innovation, I think then, yes, I think then you could probably develop a robust cybersecurity posture really, really, really quickly. A lot of the global cybersecurity firms come from Israel. So the IDF, so the Israeli Defense Force, they have this division called Mossad. That's the intelligence division. And inside Mossad is the 8200 unit. The 8200 unit is basically their cyber unit. And I'm telling you things you know already, but I'm assuming the audience may not know. So I don't want to start talking about 8200s or they think this is some sort of hacker group. It's a cyber division of Mossad. If you speak to anyone, I mean, it's what they've built, and I'm not pro-East, pro-West, pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, anything. I mean, that's not the point of this conversation. But if you look at how they used or leveraged cyber, not only to build better defensive capability for their country, but also to build an industry and like an exportable value proposition to the world. And also, you can't deny, I mean, all those companies are x82 guys. They're ex-intelligence. So if you look at all the underlying technologies that are securing most of the nations around the world, sniffer that's doing detection is also eavesdropping on your network, So the intelligence capability that you have now developed and deployed globally is absolutely phenomenal, right? That's a genius strategy. I'm not knocking them. I'm actually sitting there, I'm like, well, that's phenomenally smart. And they are phenomenally smart. They're a great intelligence agency, right? And if anybody on the other end of this podcast is thinking that's conspiracy theory, there's an article, I think it's on the Washington Post, called The Intelligence Coup of the Century. Essentially for 40 years, countries, including our own, have been buying encryption devices from a company called Crypto AG. And in around about 2019, it came out. The Crypto AG was actually a front for the CIA. So that's the American intelligence agency, and the BSA. That's a German intelligence agency. So they've been eavesdropping on our traffic, on our communications, on our phone calls, on our emails and everything through an encryption device for 40 years. Risk is likelihood. Something's been happening for 40 years. It's extremely likely that what I'm saying is true, right? So, I mean, and I guess more people who are more embedded within, like the intelligence community and even in state, right? And even in the banks, this is becoming a growing concern. That can we trust the security devices? Can we trust the supply chain?
Oh, that was actually a good answer. And also the breaking down of that answer, very, very good. But your success and accolades, I think they speak a lot of volume. And I'm a person who's very curious about what is your favorite quote and also what motivates you and how do you apply it to your professional life and personal life?
So I have like a personal mantra. It's not a quote from anyone. It's just something that I have a book where I write it down. I actually can show you the book because we don't have the blur on. Live as I dream and die with no regret. I think the worst thing for me is to be on my deathbed and wish I had done something. So I remind myself every day to whatever my passions, whatever I dream, whatever, I'm going to wake up that morning and that's what I'm going to do. Because I don't want to be on my deathbed and say, I wish I started my own business, or I wish I, tried to, conquer the world, or I wish I went and lived in, all these different countries. I like that quote because I think too many of us, we may dream or we may want something, but, that fear of failure holds us back. And the only failure is to be on that deathbed regretting how you spent your time on earth, right? And so you will know when you come up with that decision, and you will know, my brother, when you come to that turning point, that inflection question that I find helps is, will I regret this when I die? And his answer is yes. Sometimes you won't have all the data that's going to tell you you're going to be successful. And sometimes there's a really good reason to be scared. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It's acting despite your fears. Sometimes you just need to have faith.
It speaks volumes to me because we share the same quote, but something a bit similar, because I have the same mentality in terms of I'd rather try it now, and then I don't want to find out later in terms of me being like, I wish I could have done this in this way. And I have a saying which I always say to my friends that I don't want to reach the age of 45 or 50 by saying to myself, if I could have done this, I could have been here or this, and one of my saying is this: I'd rather do it scared. And when you do it scared, just know that sometimes that's actually the right direction that you should be going to. Because if it feels good and feels comfortable, which means you're doing it wrong. But if you feel scared, most of the time you're doing it right.
Yeah. I always say I spoke at the government of Namibia invited me to come and speak. And I was speaking to a bunch of kids, basically all the winners for the National Science Fair. And I was telling them the 2 times I almost met the president. And because, I was lucky I got an award from the president this year. But unfortunately, I wasn't in the country. So my sister went to get it. But the one thing I was always tell kids, nothing good ever happens in a comfort zone. It doesn't matter which way you look at it. You need to push yourself, and you need to, like the one way I know we're not pushing boundaries is we're feeling comfortable. The second way I know we're not pushing boundaries is we're not making any mistakes. Because if you're not making mistakes, then you're not trying hard. You're not really trying something, pushing the boundaries of what's possible if you're not making a mistake here or there. Remember, mistakes aren't mistakes, they're learnings, right? So third one has to be, the winner will be the person who learns the fastest. So if mistakes is not learning, well, then you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, making mistakes, and learning fast, from those mistakes. That's a pretty exciting way to live. I also feel it's not so much about the destination, but the process itself. And I think that's the other thing, right? Is people always talk about early adopters and things like that. But if you're doing something innovative, you'll attract innovative.
For people out there watching, for those who are dreaming of working for Snode Technologies, in your saying, what qualities would you be looking for in terms of character as well for a person? when you're hiring most of the time?
So it's a super interesting question. I always feel, you need the combination of two things, skill set and mindset. The difference is skill set can be taught. Mindset is, and like the value system, the underlying value system for the individual is something you either have or you don't, right? I'll give you and I don't judge, right? If you go to work from Monday to Friday so that you can live for the weekend, I would argue that you're only living, roughly 20% of your life then, and you're sacrificing your time for money. Whereas for me, the more logical thing is to sacrifice my money for time, right? So that I can do the things I want to do and the things I love to do. But that's okay. People like that exist. And I just don't think it's fair for me to judge. So I don't. But that would not be somebody I'd want to work with at Snode. So we know Snode's a difficult sort of environment. Cyber's difficult environment. So number one is you've got to love what you do, right? You really got to be passionate, because when things get really difficult, it's that love and that desire, that really pulls you through, that love for what we do. The second thing is our value system: excellence, innovation, and authenticity. We're South Africans. We're not trying to be somebody else. We're not trying to hop, skip, and jump to some other country where everything's supposedly better. We're South Africans. If we're in that fortunate position to have gone to a nice school, to have got a good education, to have got a job where people imparted knowledge onto us and now we're valuable, it's not the time to pack up our bags and leave. I just think, what happens to those you leave behind? So now it's time to give back to that system. You unpack your bags and you contribute and you teach kids about being authentic, about being themselves. And a lot of kids that we work with, we bring in as interns. They come from disadvantaged backgrounds, but they've got, because, especially from the areas that we grew up. So we're based in Centurion and Pretoria. We take kids who don't have those opportunities to go to other places and maybe lack some of the, we work with a group of people where, for example, some of the kids don't have, parents, and, they come from pretty impoverished backgrounds, but they got the right attitude. They've got the right kind of mindset, and we know that they're going to get the skill set. So then we bring them in and we start training them up, and, and one of the things we have to unteach them is that thing that I can't, because there's so much of that. I can't be the CEO of my own startup and be across 6 continents and dominate the world. It's like, why? It's like, because, IBM does cybersecurity and Fortinet does cybersecurity and Palo Alto, and I'll just never be able to compete. No, that's how do we have to dismantle some of those barriers in their thought process, because they're not real. They're not real barriers. And if there's anybody on this pod listening to this podcast right now, you're feeling that way, you got to realize these are barriers you're creating. They're not barriers that actually exist. You can do anything you want to do. And you can do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it. But another cliche, your attitude always determines your altitude. If you believe you can't, you are right. There's a saying, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. You gotta believe. But once you get that through, I would say mindset is second. So value system first, mindset second, skill set third. Most startups, when they achieve some form of success, go to where the money is. They go to the US market, they go to Europe. You notice Snode goes to where the problems are. We're in Southeast Asia now. We're working with the Philippines is one of our hot areas right now. But the Philippines is getting attacked. The Philippines also has some serious sort of human trafficking and child exploitation stuff. There's a lot of issues in that region where technology like ours can be applied, and, we can help people. We can truly make a positive impact to the people who need it most. I think if your whole thing is, I just want to get paid, man. It's cool. I respect that. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm probably thinking then, you want to go work for one of the big banks, or, and that's probably your path. Snode might not.
Oh, that's beautiful. Love that. And then I think closing off, what advice would you give to somebody like myself who obviously want to and currently working on starting my own cybersecurity firm?
One of my friends that I grew up with did phenomenally well. He actually invested in us when we built the technology. We had a lot of people who wanted to buy it, but they didn't want me to own it. They wanted to own it, right? And it was everybody. Like we got offers from lots of the big brands. But one of my friends did incredibly well in his time, and he was one of my clients. I looked after his business, and he was like, "I'll give you the money," and he's my business partner today, right? But one of the things he told me, and I always gravitate towards the things that, like I sort of didn't have. That's the advice, like the mistakes I've made, those kinds of things. And I remember him saying to me many years ago, almost 10 years ago, is no matter how big you dream bigger. Like dream bigger. Don't be scared to dream big. So whatever that target is in your mind, make it bigger, dream bigger, right? And then just go forth and get it done. Don't be scared to dream big. And, a lot of people laughed at us. When we said we're going to be a South African OEM, we're going to sell to people around the world and all of that. Because there weren't many South African OEMs who played in that space, right? And it was IBM, Palo Alto, Trend Micro, and all these huge names. And I mean, we just kept dreaming big, right? Up to today, we still dream big. And I'll die dreaming big. If there's anything like that's stopping you from dreaming big, remember, it's a fictitious mental barrier that I want you to just get rid of.
Sure. You just have me speechless on that. I think you're also just woken up with fire. A friend of mine always says, my friends always complain that I'm very obsessed about. So I have this mentality, right? I'm a very competitive person. But I compete with my future self. And I wake up at 2 o'clock every morning. And friends of mine always ask me, why do you wake up in such a crazy time? And it's because I'm so hungry of becoming the best version of myself that I feel like if I wake up for example, at 5 o'clock, for me, I'm already late of doing the things that I need to do. So by 2 o'clock, I can be able to do what I need to do to get things done, because during the course of the day, I've got all the other things that I need to do, work and stuff like that. But during that moment in time, I'm able to do and eliminate what I need to eliminate and make sure that I reach my goals. And if something is stopping me from reaching my goals, and reflecting in terms of, okay, this is stopping me from now, but this doesn't mean this is a full stop. This is just a comma for me to take a break, but to continue again and jump on. And let's see how we're able to do that. And let me see and find somebody who can help me to be able to reach my full potential or that particular goal as well. But I really appreciate, you coming to the podcast as well, and you sharing your knowledge as well. Thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure, man. Thanks for inviting me. It was fantastic to spend some time with you and have a chat. Like I said, I've been fortunate. I got to see you on the podcast where, and I really enjoyed that.